Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa na'udzu billahi min syururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlil fala hadiya lahu. Asyhadu an la ilaha illallah wa asyhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Amma ba'd. Thank you for being here to listen what I'm going to deliver on this occasion. Basically, the title: Environmental Humanities, Mizan, Equilibrium, and also Justice. The aim here is to actually putting the Tawheed in the realm of contemporary science. So, when I deliver, you can see the patterns in nature that we need to realign that with Tawheed. Right. So this is my introduction, my contents regarding this presentation. So like to show our environment now is really grim, especially with the events of the innovation over the years till today, in the sixth wave of innovation. We can see that the CO2 has increased. With that also we can see the increase in the temperature, and you can see that over the from 1958 to 2024, we noticed that the atmospheric CO2 has already increased by 50%, and that has an impact with respect to the greenhouse gases. The blanket here, notice there is this incoming solar radiation, and you can see that all of them not going to go back. There will be 360 here, 240 only return back. The rest remain on this earth. When it remains on this earth, can go, so you can see it been circulating on this earth. So with regard to IPCC report, that's what happened now in the world, the increase in temperature. That also will link with our usage of the earth, and by this year we need about 2 earths. In 2023 we need 1.7 earths. How can we survive, right? And Malaysia, as it is, also has gone deeper into deficit. We are talking about our emissions, is the one forming the ecological footprint. Notice that the Malaysia's per capita carbon emission, with regard to ecological footprint, is 8 tons, and we are using the assets in the country, and the biocapacity cannot accommodate the ecological footprint in the country. And that's also true for many other countries. We share this world. Right. What's environmental humanities? Now we're talking about some things need to be done with respect to our modeling, with our scientific and our scientists finding. We need to put in some kind of strategies with respect to social, historical, right? We need to mobilize humanistic knowledge. That's why I'm treating this subject matter with respect to a human perspective. And when we're talking about human perspective, bear in mind our principle. That is our Talmudic principle. So the term was used in 1998 by Hannah, and then what we need, EH for short of environmental and humanities, is that it explores how the environment is constructed and represented in relation to humans. That's why we come in. That's why humans come in here. That's why my study was on environmental humanities. Now, historically, it means what? It means cultural, with regard to man, philosophical. So I come in, and also religious. I can tie in religious with philosophy. So bear in mind my sort of focus, religious and philosophical, but supported by recent findings, by contemporary sciences. Okay, and therefore environmental humanities will be a combination of this, basically anthropology, philosophy, literature, history, archaeology, and human geography. Anthropology stands for scientific studies on humans. anthropology. Anthro mean humans. And also we're talking about man as Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens, I mean wise men. Sapien, wise. Homo is man. These are terms used for man, for human. So you can see it's an integrated form, integrated with philosophy and the rest, right? So I'm focusing, therefore, when we compare, the present study was on society sciences. Can we compare it with environmental humanities? Yes, we can. Studied by this, Blanco, he made a summary of this, the recent finding last year, 2025. I can say 2 or 3 here, will be discussed further in subsequent slides regarding our human sort of the convergence with respect to sustainability. We converge with respect to these two on the respect of care and stewardship. That is aligned with our being Khalifa. But in the Western treatment of the subject matter, it doesn't come with that. It doesn't come with being stewardship. The modern science talking about how you utilize the environment, as if our environment is all ours, right? So that is the case here. So between these two, there's a divergence with respect to a contrasting vision, with respect to how we tackle environment, with respect to sciences, how we tackle social and architectural issues with regard to the sustainability sciences, and human and non-humans. We can converge here. We converge here. We bring nature and we bring nature back. We transform socio-political relationship, and we have this non-cognitivist, a big sounding name, but it means using the heart, not only the cognitive, using our heart, and to coincide with the cognitive. So human studies, we really need this one. When we look at the environment, we look at the living and non-living beings, we can see some patterns or not. And that patterns, does it concur with our belief? Does it concur with our treatment of the subject matter? Can we bridge nature with respect to culture? So this is when you're talking to people who are different discipline, can be quite complex in a way, right? Again, there are all sentences here. I'm not going to go read this one. Probably, if I read you, I will lose. If I read it, I will lose my audience. Right? Anyway, it's called interdisciplinary, and also often cross national and cultural boundaries. That's the development of EH. It's a research study all over the world now since 1998. We are looking at how we can actually solve environmental problems. We go beyond the numbers. We go beyond the physical sciences. We go beyond the modeling work. We touch humans. Right. So the focus of EH is actually collaborate between humanities and sciences. Collaborate. Then we can see that we can transform that. Therefore, we can actually alter the environment, structures, and the political, societal, and cultural causes, and also be able to do something about it. And I can show you later how the indigenous environment take care of the interaction, the interface between the humans and the surrounding and ecosystems. Right. We have a term called Anthropocene. Anthropocene talking about anthropology, talking about human, right? Just now we're talking about anthropology. Anthro something to do with humans, right? So human societies and economies are the central causes. You can see here what happened. These are the damage done by human sex scale, human beings, right? You look at, for example, here, Earth's surface. We're talking about beyond what is been. This is intact. This remains intact, but you can see the damage done by people, humans. That's why environmental humanities now of concern, right? Because we need to touch base with philosophy, we need to touch base with culture, so that we can somehow do it in a better way, how we manage the environment. So, talking about socially just communities, we use this, economic growth, especially engineering, that we forget this, right? We forget it's not really a factor, right? So we now look at it again. Now, so nature now can no longer be examined and explicated exclusively via natural scientific only. We can incorporate, we can identify and predict the global processes is the ongoing inter and transdisciplinary causes. Transdisciplinary means you refer to the merging between others in the same field. Now, what nature inspired? Can we look at nature and see whether there's a pattern of something that we can recognize? That what nature tells us, something humanistic values, what they teach us, right? For example, talking about a pack of wolves, animal kingdom, pack of wolves. You can see how a leader there, can a group is old and weak, one that is ready to defend and fight, this is ready to attack, this is ready again to the physical bodies there, they are strong. The first group was like this, the three were weak one, the five in the group are the strongest. The group in the middle is the group that is always protected. The five healthy and good animals, the leader is there. In that procession, he needs to be at the back. I will relate later how a leader should be. All right? So in this case, it's at the back. Now ants working together, can see how ants working together in society. So they cannot survive without that sort of cooperation. Because the cooperation they make between them, they can function very well in the complex condition of the environment. Notice how they cooperate in delivering food for the colonies, right? Another one, the plant kingdom, Chinese bamboo. Chinese bamboo teaches us about perseverance. So in the first 5 or 6 or so, they are growing the root system. Then after in the 6th week, can see how it grows, right? That is tell us about the development, root development during the years 1 to 4 years. But beyond that, we're talking about rapid growth, perseverance. That tells about perseverance, right? Another one, even despite that, they can show us something about biomimicry. It's a technology where we mimic nature. Right? Engineering can mimic nature. One of them is this. The termite-inspired air conditioning. That can also inspire us for self-cooling. In this case, notice the hot air comes in, they have built up, the termites build up all this, and they have comfortable level at this point. At E level, the queen there can stay and be laying eggs, and we can copy this with respect to one building there is in Zimbabwe, where there's no air conditioning. It's by self-cooling. There is air comes in and then goes out. There's a system there, follow and copy this. That's why we call it biomimicry. The other one is we learn from the kingfishers, because when the train exits the tunnel, there's a loud noise. Right? A study done in the Labrador University at the 50 meter from the tunnel, from the exit point, 150 decibel. The further they are, the better in terms of sound. But still, it is decibel. 152 is about the sound of the, it's a loud noise. You can see miles away, right? But then when it is shaped like this, right, it reduces the noise, right? It reduces the noise by 15%. Even now, you can go to 200 miles per hour. That is actually making less noise. The third one on photovoltaic cell, we learn it from it to make solar. We can make from the photosynthesis, we can make solar cell, and we can improve many battery research on the battery based on the photosynthesis and the rest. This is artificial photosynthesis. Right. Now I come to the essential thing, the balance and equilibrium. Just now we can see humanistic values and what we can learn from nature. The more important one is, can we look at the point where they always will tell you about the balance. They tell you about the balance, right? The pattern. So you don't see trees as they are, you see them as there's a balance. And with the balance, there's an equilibrium, right? And you notice that. So that's why balance and equilibrium are not really the same, but equilibrium actually is a broader term referring to the state of balance, while balance is in the ability to maintain that equilibrium. So that is mizan. Mizan has 3 meanings. Being balanced, mizan has 3 meanings. So anyway, that is what I mean by balance and what I mean by equilibrium. Right? Now, I need therefore to again repeat the theme of the talk, really looking at how we can universalize Tawhid. We just carry on Tawhid in our Muslim world, in the Muslim world. We need to not say the word Tawhid itself deters people from going into that aspect. Aspect of what? Aspect of the balance in things. Aspect of what? Equilibrium in things. Because they align it to different direction. But you align it to Tawhid, that is the Tawhid, then there is the oneness, there is a vicinity of oneness, vicinity of one. You can have something kind of order. So I will present to you the slide on how I can show orderliness, right? And there's also interconnectedness between parts, as if they form a single tree. They're all interconnected. At the end of the day, you have an hierarchical in terms of nature, and you can see there's an order. What happened now in the contemporary science? You're talking about the Newton's sciences, talking about cause and effect. Effect cannot come without a cause, right? There must be cause and effect in Newton's. The second approach now, talking about quantum, you do not know what's going to be the effect, because you do not know the position and you do not know the momentum of a particle. Light can be a wave or can be a particle, right? So that's all been what we call probability. Now, Tawhid is actually superior than these two. Superior than Newton's sciences and superior to the quantum sciences. Why? We have the order, the hierarchical. Because if you look at what we believe in miracles, right? Like Abraham, right? Prophet Abraham. He was thrown into the fire but was not burned. There's a cause there, right? There should be an effect of being burned, right? That's a miracle. And also the birth of Prophet Jesus, right? And there's no cause, there's an effect. So, and other things also will fall in line with order. That's why I'm saying that in the contemporary science, Tawhid itself is superior. But how far we go into that and we challenge the Western science is another matter. So we at ISTAC is trying to do that. How are we going to put that in the proper perspective and be aligned with Tawhid with that respect. Right. So in the pedagogy of it, when to disseminate this, we're talking about hierarchy of knowledge, where everything may be arranged in an orderly way. Orderly way means there's an hierarchy. Knowledge is an hierarchy. Hierarchy is so true also in nature. True among the plant kingdom, true among the animal kingdom, right? And the one that is most challenging to us as intellectuals in science is the balance in the cosmos. The balance in the cosmos, right? Talking about this balance, we're talking about the Einstein general relativity. We're talking about this theory then, being proved by all this evidence. There was a bit of challenge on this issue of Einstein theory, but now it's been 100 years already. And we're talking about these two. I want to go further on these two with respect to how the evidence of general relativity, right? So according to Einstein, and there is also proof by looking at the starlight, right? We're talking about the sun's mass causes a curvature in the fabric of space-time. Light from distant star, as it passes close to the sun on its way to Earth, follow this curved path. There is effect of the gravity in that form. Although now gravity people cannot say what is graviton that make up the gravity, but the effects there. Now this frame is not something you don't see. There's an effect there, right? Yash Bahun, right? Talking about that, you can't see. It is the effect. The effect is the one showed by evidence by this, where the light actually been deflected, right? And Newton theory talking about 0.7 into arc second, but the correct one was 1.75 by Einstein. And notice this is the way the key insight to the space now. Space not really empty, but we can't see. This is you got to imagine this. Got to imagine that sort of frame, right? Now the equation for the general relativity is this. It took him 10 years to get it this way. And he was supported by this friend of his on the Riemann geometry on his calculation. You see, the G is still there. Although G now is really, they say it's not a force anymore, but there's a G there that people can relate to still today, right? You can see the discipline of stars, right? Before and after. You can take this when there's an eclipse. When there's an eclipse, you can see this, the star's apparent position and also actual position. Now Eddington measured that using the what is that in the Cambridge University and did that. You can see here the reflection. This is the one that is Newton. This one that is by the Einstein, and this was proved to be correct and been there for 100 years. A lot of challenges after that, but till today it's still there. So you can see the reflection of starlight near the sun, Einstein and Newton. So Einstein more or less telling you about this more accurate in terms of that. And you can see been tested from, it was done early in 1919, but carried on for many, many years and proved that Einstein was correct. Right? So that is reflection of star and published in the Royal Society papers. And second one, which proved him to be correct, is the precision of Mercury. Now Mercury is not elliptical shape. Mercury shifted a bit as it orbits. The sun is nearest, Mercury is nearest to the sun. So it actually precede a bit. So we're talking about that is also proved by Einstein to be correct kind of precision, and using his finding that again proved that his relativity is correct, right? And therefore, GR was short of general relativity. It's more accurate and profound explanation was given, but the apparent balance still works, right? In terms of most engineering and astronomical context. For us engineers, Newton is still all right, because being precise, whether we need to be that precise in terms of the estimating gravitational effect, or we can be like this, so we can still concur with this one. There is the orbital motion, right, caused by still Newton, right? And when the orbital motion among planets, we still believe that here. You can see here, right? You can see here from this equation of centrifugal force and gravitational force, it is proportional to r squared, gravitational force. In here is inversely proportional to r cubed. Now r cubed, if you reduce this, it becomes nearer, right? As you come nearer, the centrifugal force is going to be increased. If r is decreased, this one is going to be increased. So at some point, it's going to balance up again. That is physics 101, right? So that is the finding I could say at this juncture. Now another one that is we look at the balance of the subatomic world in the position of positron and electron. Now here is the equilibrium distance between the two. It's between the annihilation and also pair production. Pair production will be here. As they come nearer, there will be annihilation. For positron and electron, there must be a certain distance when the pair is existing, and that is where it is get to be that's to be equilibrium, right? They cannot come any nearer, right? That's it. This is the equation for Dirac, which actually combining special relativity and quantum mechanics, right? Right. And evidence here is positively charged for its positron. Positron is the positively charged. That is the positron, right? We can also see the physical balance in terms of the natural situation. In terms of, this is famous, right? We can see there's no mixing between fresh and so-called less salty and saltier, right? In the seas, right? This is famous, what they call universe. But my work was on this, right? Finding the interface in the groundwater, right? So for 3 years, I monitored this for Kelantan Delta here is the distance 2 kilometers squared. You know, these are 3 transects doing the modeling. This work was done at Birmingham University and also here. You can see the saltwater intrusion. There is a balance there. Balance in the groundwater. So you got a balance in the cosmos, you got balance in the subatomic world, and you got balance in the fresh water, underground water. On Earth also, rain. Rain itself, actually, there's a balance. You see there, the global average annual precipitation is 39 inches. It repeats itself. There's a balance with respect to rain amounts that fall on this Earth. You see here, there's still balance there. How far it goes up to many years have been predicted. This is predicted in the 2100 by IPCC report. Right? So which means that there's a balance there also with respect to the rain that fall on this Earth. There's a balance, physical balance. Right? And also balance in buildings, talking about how they manage buildings which are energy efficient, can actually can actually tackle water and also become efficient in energy and also efficient in water. This is also balance and efficient and equilibrium. So I can see this balance. Now, let's see now another level, talking about justice. Now, the core here is justice. Now, in engineering, you look at the equilibrium here, balance equilibrium, summation of the forces, 0 means balance. Another level of the situation will be the justice. In engineering, it will be things in the right place, stability and justice. When things are in the right place, we reach equilibrium. Only and when we achieve equilibrium, there is stability. Right? That is our challenge. That's our challenge. So to move on from stability, looking at justice, justice is whereby condition where things are in their proper places. Things are in the proper places. Right? Wisdom is the knowledge of the proper places of things. You know where to put things are. That's wisdom. And to go about putting things in the proper place, you have the adab. What is missing in our knowledge now is adab. The corruption of knowledge now is due to adab. We do not know where to put, where the wisdom is. We don't know where to achieve the wisdom. That's the problem of knowledge now. So Allah Ta'ala said, you need to teach adab first, then you go to knowledge. Now with the knowledge we are faced with now, with all the information we get, we can see that we tend to lose our adab already. We should know where the adab we place things now. We lose that already, and we keep on losing that. That is something that we need to be aware as researchers and as scientists. Now, justice is a condition where things are in the proper places. In the proper places, right? Let's say here we look again we go back to the wolf just now, which tell us about something of the proper place. The leader just now, I showed you, is at the back. Now when things get worse, he'll be in front. That is the proper place for him. That is the proper place for him as a leader. You see that? In more difficult movement requiring bravery, he is in front. He take the lead. He found its way and plotted the best possible path. Do we have that sort of leaders or not? So, pack of wolves, they choose a leader after a rigorous screening system, They choose the one that is the best, that can lead them in terms of difficulties, right? So that is, we can learn something there from the wolves, how they've been surviving. Actually, wolf is one of the best sort of in the animal kingdom, where they're very forceful in terms of in the life system. And colony too have a structure and hierarchy. You talk about justice, right? Talk about order and hierarchy, and also show us who should be the leader. You have the queen, the drones, soldiers, and the workers, right? They have the proper function. They have proper hierarchy. Hierarchy in terms of this community of the ants colony. Justice number 2 is this one. It's the proper place of things. Again, justice. So justice can be broadened into many of these scenarios. This scenario is talking about correct position. If you know something about water treatment, there's coagulation and flocculation, the colloidal world. The colloidal world is that you must have this correct position of where the resultant will cause you have the repulsion and also attraction. Van der Waals exert itself when they have at this point. and they meet there, when they overcome the resultant. So we can see that we need to be at a position when there is a attraction between the two colloids, right? Whereas in the positron electron just now, positron electron, you got to be far apart to be balanced, to be equilibrium. In this case, they can meet, and that's not harmful. But for positron electron, when they meet, there will be annihilation. You see? Correct position, right? This is a correct position. So here, where the repulsion due to the zeta potential being overcome in such a way that van der Waals exert itself. That is therefore forming colloid, forming the particle, and then bigger and bigger, 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 and they fall down, they settle down. That is the colloidal world. So in the colloidal world also, we're talking about the correct position. The third one is that the quantum entanglement. This thing in quantum mechanics, this one has been most exciting field now, because that is whereby, if you refer to the verse here, all things created in past, right? So if we align the present search, present now topic, which talking about entanglement, there is, if you sort of have a spin here, the other part will feel it the same thing, and it can go for distances. There is the use is in the quantum cryptography for secure communication, quantum computing, quantum teleportation, and so on. Quantum sensor. This now, despite not knowing, which Einstein didn't like it, but he said it's a spooky, kind of spooky because it goes faster than light. But the technology is using that technique, that entanglement technique, in the quantum entanglement. That's a very exciting field. In fact, the list of Nobel Prize winners now, a lot in the quantum now. Recent this year also, in the quantum world, not the Nobel winners in physics on the quantum. Right. The fourth one, which actually based on our belief, is the rectifying force. Amar ma'ruf nahi munkar. That's also justice, right? Amar ma'ruf nahi munkar, which actually we rectify faults. Now, how does it apply? In case of an example where it apply in environment, Indonesian government, for example, he make a ruling. The council made a ruling that the burning of the forest and land is haram. That's a forceful ruling, you know. And so in 2016. And you can see apparently people obey that because the fatwa is a ruling. So therefore, you can see the human aspect have the influence on the environment. This one example, right? One example where the interface, where humans can play the role of mitigating. In this case, a very powerful sort of mitigating coming from the Ulama Council. The fifth one, this is forest cover. The fifth one is about proper place. Now, what is greenhouse? This one is a green building. They're all green. That's not proper. That's not proper. What is green in actual proper place? Actual justice concept I mentioned just now. This is the proper house. Yeah. The kampung house itself is a proper climatic house. You see here, the air. Because there's a column there, air comes in, and then you have a ventilation there and there. Because you see the windows are open at your level there, no? So it goes there, and also here, right? Even this kampung house, you notice there also that side there's a place where the cat can sleep. That's how the old designers or the old folks there think about all sort of things when they have their so-called Malay house. So the Malay house itself is full of this, determining what they are going to face with, interacting with the environment. So that is the climatic house, right? Another one, probably I just have a few slides left, which is actually the indigenous environment. Environment involves our culture, involves greatly our environment with respect to during the colonial and after colonial days. Effect of what we call this as the myth of the lazy native. The myth of the lazy native. Now, when the colonists with their team of people came to Philippines, to Malaya then, they notice the people there are just easily sitting in a restaurant and having a cup of tea at 8 a.m. So in their culture, 8 a.m. supposed people to be working, right? But this thought, they didn't understand that people are there resting because they are waiting for something. What is that? What are they waiting for? The tax to fill up the cup. They all be rubber tappers. So they actually came, go to work, went to work, 2 or 3 a.m. and tap the trees. So while waiting for that to collect in the cup, they're actually having their cup of tea and breakfast. That's why they're not lazy. They wake up at 3 a.m. But the impression of that is that when the colonists came, they used that as the thing that, okay, we need to help you out. We need to help you out in terms of how we tackle your economy. So the ecosystem there, that actually pushed that sort of idea to the natives. So that's why the Myth of Lazy Native, written by the late Syed Hussein Alatas, actually the brother of Alatas, we're talking about that is the issue when we actually been pushed for development with the recurring effects of the environment damages to the country over many years. That is the point that we are talking about. Indigenous environment have their own way of interacting with the environment, right? So that is what I'm saying about talking about indigenous environment. Notice how they have to wait. They need to wait for the when to harvest, when to do the tilling, when to do that. Now there is time period, so they need to be patient. So in the culture of the indigenous or the native, or in this case the Malays, then they're subject to this, so they can cater for the environment their own way. So if the industry come on board, then they have been disrupting. So that's in a way also the environmental humanities can play the role, putting in what will be the effect of such and such developments, right? In depth, they study that, they will do that in depth, right? I can actually summarize my concept about adab just now. Adab is that, let's say in bahasa, berakit-rakit dahulu ke hulu, berenang-renang ke tepian, bersakit-sakit dahulu, bersenang-senang kemudian. We have the river system there. We need to actually upstream, you need to the rara, but then when you go down, you can actually berenang-renang. That is adab. That's adab, So in the scientific world, can we put efforts? The adab means you put things in the proper places, trying to put there, where to place things are. Adab is a proper effort. So when you do the work in the labs or your mathematical derivation, you are trying to use the adab, the efforts, to get the answer, right? That's adab part. And in the environment, interacting with the human, this can be showed there. Working, you have to work going upstream and all that. This is therefore talking about adab. The second concept is actually talking about mastery. Mastery, you need to, kalau tidak dipecahkan ruyung, mana akan dapat sagunya? That is put in to get the effort, to get the result of that, you have to need to know the thing, you need to know the stuff. Mastery, right? Mastery is where you know now where things should be placed. You got the wisdom already, right? The wisdom. And when you know things where it should be, Atta said, that is justice, right? And that justice, what is the ultimate justice for us as humans, right? So if you follow the Rasmi Padi, ikut Rasmi Padi, makin berisi, makin menunduk, is justice. Because now, with more knowledge we have, you feel humble by it. Because you know now your position as a abid. So justice there is to know where the things are, where the position of things are, where the proper place of things are. Then you know yourself as an abid. That is our position, as man, as servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is humility. So when you know that, when you know the correct position of thing, proper position of thing, that is humility. Right. In my concluding remarks, EH is actually will analyze cultural representation of environmental change and their impact, and to adopt the deep spiritual and practical connections. That is what EH should be doing, right? And it has to be multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary. We need the scientists to come in to prove the result, to bring up the result, like that. And also with respect to the using indigenous people with the land and water and also ecosystem to reconstruct environmental changes that have been brought about by individual and collective actions, and to see whether there are side effects or not. That you need people to bring about the issue, to reconstruct the environmental changes. Thirdly, is to advocate interdisciplinary cooperation with the natural sciences, since both sides will benefit from such collaboration, provided of course that they are willing and able to overcome any reservation that may exist in regard to concepts and methodologies outside of their own field of experience. You need to be cooperating together, human side, actually the philosophy side, the human side, the humanity values of that, and with the scientists. And some will sacrifice some aspects, some will not, some will be shared. So that is interdisciplinary about. Both are good in their own field, but can we integrate? So that's integration aligned with what I talked about just now. Aligned to what I said about the justice. All right. These are my references. So last slide that I want to share with you. Indeed, we have presented in this Quran every kind of illustration for people, but human beings are the most argumentative of all creatures. وَلَقَدْ صَرَّفْنَا فِي هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ لِلنَّاسِ مِنْ كُلِّ مَثَلٍ وَكَانَ الْإِنسَانُ أَكْثَرَ شَيْءٍ جَدَلًا. So that is the last slide I want to share with you. And indeed, we are, compared with nature, either living or non-living things, we are the most argumentative. Thank you for your kind attention. Jazakallahu khairan wa billahi taufiq wa hidayah. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.